All right, everyone, welcome back to another episode of I Can Do This All Day. I'm Dan, the part-time Avenger. That's Mark, the resident Jedi.
Hello there. Tonight we are doing something that is near and dear to our hearts, but catalogs an event that neither of us were alive for. But something that we've all watched, or at least both of us have watched, for years and years until the cast got sour, and then we stopped watching. And then we watched again, and maybe we looked at reruns. But regardless, tonight, pre-recorded from our individual houses across the country, we will talk Saturday Night.
You remember from our 2024 awards show, this was one of the movies that we talked about that we'll probably go see. We just didn't see it yet. So here we are today. Mark, let's talk a little bit about the origin of our experience with Saturday Night Live. Why don't you break them off with what you grew up with for that wonderful NBC show?
I never watched it live as a kid. Now, I don't
Never.
think, I mean, probably, but I was introduced to it like many other people by all the Comedy Central reruns that would go over and over and over.
Holy shit. So, okay, this is blowing my mind right now.
Blowing your mind?
You're telling me that you did not watch Saturday Night Live. So you weren't like one of the kids that like stayed up late to try and talk about it at school the following Monday.
No.
Really? Wow,
No.
that's so interesting to me because that was one of the things. Like I would struggle to stay up to watch Saturday Night Live. And because I missed so many episodes because my young little boy body just couldn't handle it, I would tape it. And that's how I would watch it. I'd watch it like multiple times on Sunday. So that way I could talk to my friends about it on Monday. So interesting, huh? And so
I didn't have like cool parents who watched Saturday Night Live or thought anything was like, there was not a lot of comedy happening, right? It was not, I did not have that household. I am not a product of my environment, I would like to think.
Wait, should I cue the sad music on the podcast
No,
right there? Was you
no.
okay?
I'm not trying to tell people that I didn't have any toys and at 4 years old I was ruined by watching the Terminator. I'm just saying that
Ruins, just molded
molded,
and shaped. That's what it
molded.
was.
Yeah, they weren't into SNL at the time. I got into it more, I'd say more in like high school or eighth grade or whatever. When I started listening to comedy albums, when I started listening to Carlin, when I got super into the reruns on there. Right, the Aykroyd reruns were great. Used to be able to watch those on the old interwebs. Super Bass-O-Matic, still the best commercial ever. But the reruns of SNL is where I really got my exposure.
Wow, that's so crazy to me. So I didn't even realize that there were reruns because I would always watch it live on Saturdays. And yeah, they would play some reruns on the Saturdays when the season was over, but I also didn't have cable, so I couldn't watch the reruns of the older stuff. So interesting. I had no
Yeah, no,
idea.
cable had it, and they played it a lot. Like Comedy Central played it a ton. So I got to watch a bunch of old new episodes. It was a lot of the Will Ferrell cast, the Phil Hartman cast, the Farley, like just the good shit. So it was there, but I don't even watch it live now. Like I'll
Yeah.
watch clips, I'll watch, specific skits, but one of the things that I'm sure we'll talk about is how the format of Saturday Night Live sometimes does not meet my ADD needs to be fully locked in through the entireness.
I don't think the cast was fully locked in to really. I don't think I've ever watched an SNL episode where every single skit was just gangbusters awesome. It's been a while. I'm sure there might be like an exception to the rule out there. There's always like a constant formula, in my opinion, where monologue or the opening skit, pretty freaking good. Monologue, pretty good. Funny sketch, and then trash sketch, weekend update, and then it kind of trails off after that. Occasionally there was like a good episode or a good sketch towards the end, but like I thought that it was just pretty consistent. Like if you watch the first 30 to 40 minutes of SNL, you've got a good amount of the meat and potatoes. You could
Hmm.
skip the rest of it, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, no, we could talk about that. I think that's really funny. But do you have a favorite era of the show since you've been watching it every Saturday religiously, Mr. No Cable, Terminator, No Toys?
I would probably say it was the early 90s when Mike Myers, Phil Hartman, Adam Sandler, those people were like Tim Meadows, those guys were all on there. Farley,
Oh,
obviously.
the Ladies'
And then
Man, the Red Hooded Sweatshirt,
and
anything
then
Phil
when
Hartman's ever done. Yes.
like once Will Ferrell got on there, I liked it, but I wasn't super into Will Ferrell and his characters on SNL. Some of them were great, but a lot of them were just like, I don't like this Will Ferrell guy. Like I hated the Spartan cheerleaders for a little while. And then I was like, okay, that's kind of funny. And I think the only reason I did think it was funny and I liked it is because some of the girls that I liked in junior high were like, oh my gosh, the Spartan skits. I love those. I'm like, yeah, I like them too. I watch Saturday Night Live all the time. I was like, no, I didn't like those skits, but I like the girls that, watched them and said that they liked them. So I was like, okay, I'll try and earn some brownie points there,
I mean, Will Ferrell was part of one of my favorite sketches of all time on Saturday Night Live.
which was,
Celebrity Jeopardy.
yeah, that was good. But it wasn't
Daryl
because
Hannah
of,
killing it.
did you say Daryl Hannah?
Daryl Hannah always played
Daryl
Sean
Hannah,
Connery.
the mermaid, and Tom Hanks in Splash.
Wait,
Daryl Hannah, that's the one.
who's the guy from SNL?
Daryl Hammond? Yeah, that's the guy. That's the guy from SNL. Daryl Hannah is the female that played the mermaid in
Hmm.
Splash with Tom Hanks. Ah, love it, love it, love it. But
Hey, whatever. Daryl
yeah,
Hammond as Sean Connery.
he was hilarious. I like those skits, but I never liked him because of Will Ferrell. I thought like this is like the shittiest Alex Trebek impression I've ever seen. It was basically just Will Ferrell talking.
But that's why it was great. I think that I've always been, and when I got into like comedy in general and stand up, which a lot of the players started there. I was watching Comedy Central a lot, watching like late night stand up. So you'd see Colin Quinn doing stand up. You see like David Tell doing stand up, and then you'd see Colin Quinn do an update. Norm, I was a huge Norm Macdonald fan because I just loved the deadpan and loved the just you got to just sit in it jokes. His Netflix show highly underrated.
I never seen his Netflix show.
Oh, worth it.
I'll check it out. I didn't get Norm Macdonald back then. I liked some of his stuff, like on Weekend Update, but then like his Letterman, I never really got his Letterman, but it was funny. I was just wondering, like, is Letterman really that off, and that's his impression, or is just Norm Macdonald an odd character, and that's what made it, funny?
Kind
But
of both. Kind of
yeah,
both. Especially if it was the alcoholic Letterman. Yeah, get them both. Get them both. But on the Norm Macdonald show, he has David Letterman as a guest. Maybe start there.
I'll have to check it out. Well, I mean, we're kind of going into like all the standout cast members. Do you have like a favorite SNL cast member? If like you could do oh gosh, maybe we should save this for another episode, like a Mount Rushmore of SNL characters. But let's just say your number one SNL character, who
You
would it
can't.
be?
I don't think I
You got
can.
it. I just said it. I just asked you. So you got to narrow it down to one.
You know,
I
out of
know it's
love, I'm just
tough.
going to go Phil Hartman.
Ooh, okay.
Out of love, I'm going to go Phil Hartman. Love Farley, love Spade, love Sandler, Farrell, Tim Meadows. That whole group was so good. But Phil Hartman no longer gets as much love because, he's dead. So it got to go Phil Hartman. What about you?
If it's a very tough question, but if I had to answer gun pointed to my head, I think it has
Dan
to be
Aykroyd?
Sandler. No,
Oh,
no. I think it has to be Sandler. I mean, I love Farley, but I think Sandler was just so silly. And it's funny because I like the silliness on SNL, but yet I really didn't like it when he started doing movies. I just didn't care for it as much. Besides, Happy Gilmore, Billy Madison. After that, I was just like, nah,
See,
Adam
it was the
Sandler.
opposite for me.
Huh, okay.
The
So you,
Sandler on SNL was like, some of it was great. The songs, Red Hooded Sweatshirt, still like one of
yeah,
the best. But yeah,
Sloppy
no, for some
Joe.
reason he got me more in the movies than on SNL.
Fair enough, because he had a bigger cast to
Oh,
kind
the
of,
cat. That was
play off of
such a
him.
killer cast.
Yeah, like I said, gun to the head, Adam Sandler. And there's so many great skits, and my favorite skit, quite possibly of all time, Canteen Boy, with him and Alec Baldwin. The most inappropriate freaking skit, and I'm only, I think I was like 11 or 12 at the time. I found it hilarious, hilarious that there's a scoutmaster trying to just like sexually molest this young Boy Scout who happens to be like a weirdo that can call birds and snakes, like it's so strange, but so funny at the same time.
Yeah. No, uh I loved the Julia Child that they referenced in this. I remember seeing that when I was younger, probably on a rerun, and thinking it was so funny.
I don't remember that
You
one.
don't
I know
remember
I
the,
saw it.
oh, it's so funny. It's
I
Dan
I know I
Aykroyd, I
saw
think.
it,
So
but I think that's probably the reason why I
yeah,
just didn't care
yeah.
about it.
Well, that's my boy, Super Bassomatic. So let me ask you this. You loved you some Sandler. I loved me some Hartman. What about the SNL cast members that Martha'd you? What were you like? Up,
Spade,
time to pee.
Spade, 100%. David Spade.
Mm,
That's an easy one for me. Like that's the only one from that era of my favorite era of Saturday Night Live that I was just like, another Spade skit. Like, bye bye, bye bye. I hated that, hated it, and I like David Spade now. Oddly enough, it's all right. He's not bad. I
mm.
don't despise him as much as I did back then. It was when he was starting to do movies with Farley. I was like, okay, Farley's great. Why did they have David Spade with them? But they played so well off of each other, so I respect it now. What about you? What Martha do you, or who
This
Martha do you?
this may be completely influenced by Seth MacFarlane and Peter Griffin, but Jimmy Fallon, every time he was in any good skit, broke consistently. And you just like, I don't hate Jimmy Fallon, but I kind of do hate Jimmy Fallon because it's just like, stop it, Gene.
Fair
What are you
enough.
talking about, Gene? Like, it's just, mm.
I like it when characters break, but yeah, Jimmy Fallon would break all the time. But
But
I
he
don't know.
wouldn't
There's
break. Jimmy Fallon wouldn't break when it was outrageously hilarious.
Yeah,
He
yeah.
would break if it was mildly funny. Like,
Yeah.
oh, haha.
It's like
But like
someone didn't attend
uncontrollable.
dress rehearsal and like did you not see or
You've
hear
heard
what
this
was being
joke, Jimmy.
said?
You've heard the joke, Jimmy.
Yeah. It's funny that you say that because I enjoy I it's probably my favorite things when people crack up on Saturday Night Live. It's just the funniest to me. And I supposedly like that was like a big thing that like Lauren would get pissed off if you would break character on the show. But how the hell did Jimmy Fallon have a job for so many seasons then? Like it's so ridiculous. We're going into this movie. What were your expectations?
Love the director, so I was stoked.
Okay.
Uh, I was like, okay, Jason Reitman, I trust. I saw the cast list and struggled, not because I did not believe in them, but because I didn't know who they were
Fair enough.
and was, just like, I know John Belushi, Jane Curtin, Garrett Morris, Lorraine Newman, Gilda Radner, Lauren Michaels, Chevy Chase. Like, I know them. So is it, can they get that many people to embody those absolute giants?
So you were skeptical.
I was excited to watch it. Was excited about the behind the scenes look. Hope they would, do some cool stuff, but also like the cast list didn't, like, when the person I recognize the most is either Finn Wolfhard, who was playing a page, so he wasn't even like a big deal, or Lamorne, how do you say his name? Lamorne Morris, basically Winston from New Girl. is the person I know the most. I'm
Oh,
like,
I don't even watch that. I
uh,
have no idea who that was.
uh. Yeah,
Yeah, so I agree with you, but just by sheer looks, Matt Wood, who played John Belushi, I was like, holy shit, what a fucking dead ringer on angles. He looked like Belushi at certain angles, and then you see him
except
like
with the
straight on.
but what about the pube beard? Did the
I was
pube
fine with
beard
that.
get to you?
No,
It was
not at all. It was
very.
fine.
It looked like they glued pubes on his face.
Maybe that's what Belushi looked like when he was all coked
As
up.
long as he didn't get lockjaw.
I'm pretty. But it was kind of cool to see Willem Dafoe and J.K. Simmons. So I did. Hey, I had no idea going into this movie who the cast was, but it was a pleasant surprise when we got to see some Green Goblin and J. Jonah Jameson in this. That was pretty sweet.
Yeah,
I thought it was going to be like this awesome pre story of going live of like everything is going like here's all the stuff that needs to happen, here's all the players, and I thought maybe we are gonna get like some flashbacks of like some of the characters or whatever like that, just to kind of flesh out who these people were, but you didn't. If you never saw Saturday Night Live, you probably shouldn't watch this movie.
mm,
So that was kind of my expectation going in, is like, huh. So when I saw the premise of it, I was like, okay, there's got to be a little bit more to that. And then as I'm watching it, I was like,
but
oh yeah, this is
but
just all leading up to the show.
who hasn't seen Saturday Night Live?
There's a lot of people that haven't seen that era of Saturday Night Live.
Yeah, but they understand that Saturday Night Live exists.
Yeah, but I don't think they understand the build up to it and what really goes
But
on and how
like
manic it is.
that's the cool part. I think the draw of the movie. That's
If
the
you're a Saturday Night Live fan and you know what it's about. I
I
don't
think that
know if it'd be interesting to hear like people who's not, who saw the movie and were not like super into Saturday Night Live and what they thought about it.
I just, maybe it's because I'm old and I've lived through manic job stuff and event planning and stuff like that, where it's just pulling something like that off is insane.
What about the humor? Were you thinking or had any expectations for like the humor that was going to go into this?
I thought it'd be funny, but I wasn't looking at it as like a lighthearted comedy. I figured there'd be some dark things going on, and knowing some of the behind the scenes stuff from, SNL, that there always was, tension with Chevy. Talk about a great guy playing Chevy who just made you want to hate Chevy Chase even more.
Yeah.
Such a hateable character. And then the fact that they all didn't know why Jim Henson was there, and that Jim Henson just did not fit at all with their feel. I loved the guy who played Henson and Kaufman. Like
Yeah.
perfection.
Yeah.
Perfection. Um which are like two of my favorite people, that were characterized in the movie, and I'm just like, oh, can the same person do both? That is, both of those are like really deep, famous people. They pulled it off great.
I
Um,
didn't even realize that it was the same guy playing both of them. I wasn't because I wasn't familiar with the actor Nicholas Braun, and so I just wasn't looking for the same character. If I don't know the actors, it's hard. They could probably play all the characters, and I probably wouldn't
yeah.
notice the difference. Just
Well,
put a
the
wig on all of
Henson
them.
costume was basically a full face mask.
Yeah, he looked pretty different, so that's
Yeah.
why I was like, I had to go back. I was like, wait, the same guy? Hold on. And I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, kinda, yeah.
Yeah. No, but it,
So
it it worked for me at least. So I didn't go in with like crazy expectations, but I expected it to tell a cool story. And to see the Lorne Michaels is always portrayed as, cool as the other side of the pillow, but that guy's life has to be chaos. And the fact that doing this show hasn't fucking killed him yet, and he's been doing it for 50 years, is insane. He's a
yeah.
vampire.
I mean, we're talking about the story. I would be curious to hear what your version of the plot is.
People who probably in a normal world would have no business doing a television show, came together to put on a live show that nobody believed in, and somehow at the last possible second pulled it off and jump started TV history.
If you were a fan of Saturday Night Live, that synopsis would make sense. But did people who never saw Saturday Night Live ever watch this movie? Like that's what I want to know. Listeners, viewers, if you watched Saturday Night the movie and never really watched Saturday Night Live, I want to hear from you because I'd love to hear your takes. From two Saturday Night Live fans, I think it makes the movie make sense to us, and that's why I was kind of curious to hear what your plot summary would be because I don't think it's coherent if you know nothing about Saturday Night Live.
That could be the case, but I can't put myself in those shoes.
So, with this plot of the movie, were you watching it and were you thinking like, wait a second, this didn't happen on the first episode? Like, wait a second, that character wasn't even at the same time as the others. Like, were you thinking that at all?
No.
No, I had a
Uh-uh.
problem with it. I had a problem, not, well, I shouldn't say problem, but I had a like head scratcher moment. It's like, wait a second, Andy Kaufman wasn't on the same freaking season or episode as the others. Like, why is this happening right now? And so I was trying to think, like, am I going crazy? Am I not remembering the actual timeline of Saturday Night Live? And are these people just, were they on the show and I'm having a Mandela effect and I'm remembering shit wrong? But yeah, especially when it comes to things I really, really enjoy, I like historical accuracy.
Mhm.
And if it's slightly off, it doesn't sit right with me.
It
But I
wasn't
guess
slightly
you
off.
didn't have any issues with it at all, huh?
No, because it's accurate. It is dead on. So um I listened to a podcast recently with Billy Crystal on it. I didn't know Billy Crystal was like dumped from the first season of SNL, right? The most famous person I knew that was dumped from SNL was like RDJ, who did like half a season, and like Damon Wayans, who got kicked off for completely breaking character. Um, there's like really good accuracy to this. I
Not
even,
for the first episode, no.
what do you
Absolutely
mean?
not. Absolutely not for the first episode. Like
What do
you
you mean?
could pinpoint like five people that weren't even there at that time of the era of Saturday Night Live.
Who?
Kaufman, Billy Crystal.
Kaufman Kaufman was on the first episode of SNL doing Mighty Mouse. 100%. I
Why do I remember
literally
that being in like the
I
late
watched this
70s?
movie and turned on the first episode because I was like, I mean, I'm already in it. Let's go.
Really?
Yeah, it
Okay,
was
so I
dead
don't.
accurate to the first episode. The bee sketch, the opening heart attack, Carlin, all of it was dead accurate.
On the very first
On the
episode.
very first episode, Al Franken was a writer on the first episode, and Billy Crystal was supposed to be in it and got cut. 100% historically accurate.
I don't think you're correct on that
I,
because I even think that there was some like accuracy article of Saturday Night Live or Saturday Night the movie, and it's like they took elements of different times and plugged it into the first episode. So that's where I'm just like, huh. Okay, well that makes sense because I don't remember any of this shit from the first episode. Andy Kaufman, are you sure 100% was on the very first episode?
yeah, I watched it.
That's so weird. That's so weird. Okay. All right. Well, I'll take your word for it. I'm not gonna look it back up, but um, yeah. So I think
Okay,
that's
hang
the
on.
thing that
Hang on. The internet says the key inaccuracies were the last minute changes, saying that Lauren didn't switch out last minute as the weekend update host. They exaggerated some of the tensions. The mistiming sketch was bleeding Julia Child. That one was pitched later.
well,
Pretty much
maybe
it.
I guess I remembered wrong then because I feel like Andy Kaufman wasn't like a big name on Saturday Night Live until
None of
well
them were a big
after.
name.
Well, I meant like he wasn't on the cast. Like he wasn't addressed as a cast member. Because the cast members were like just the seven that were on there, like Lorraine Newman, Gilda Radner, Chevy Belushi. That's what I remember, and I feel
Yeah,
like
that was the not ready for prime time players.
yeah. So that's what I remember is like when I think of the cast, I just didn't remember Andy Kaufman being on there. But now, like, I'm starting to remember, like, oh, maybe he was on that first
Yeah,
episode.
he was a guest. Like
Okay,
like him and Valerie Broomfield were a what do they call them? Like guest appearances. You know when they do
gotcha.
the
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I get it.
starring and then with and appearing, they were
Yeah.
appearing. But yeah,
Okay. Okay. Well, all right. So maybe I have a skewed viewing of this movie then, because I feel like that's where I had a slight problem with it, because I was like, just from what I remembered, I guess I just Mandela affected myself right there. But overall, from like going on from that, so we have the major players. What were some of the I guess what were some of those original cast members that you were like, eh? Was there anyone that just didn't fit the role that you remember?
I always like didn't and much like they talked about in the movie, like Garrett Morris, I didn't
Why
remember.
wa- why was he there? Like it's so funny that he was saying that throughout the entire movie
He's
because like yeah.
hilarious.
Oh,
Like,
absolutely.
he's really funny and he's like, he's the guy on Two Broke Girls. Like the guy that runs the register, the old guy.
Oh, I don't watch it, so okay.
Yeah, no, but he's good in a comic ensemble. I think he's funny, but I think that I mean, when you put together a cast like that and SNL, you didn't know what you were building. You had people that worked together a lot and they came in like as opposing factions from either Groundlings or Second City or whatever when they put this together, and the big egos in the room or the artists in the room, definitely interesting. But I mean, everybody pales to Belushi, Aykroyd, and Chase, you know?
I feel like Belushi didn't have enough of a comedic presence in this movie. Because there's like rapid fire humor in SNL just in general, and I always just remember him being freaking hilarious. You know, mini chocolate donuts, the breakfast of champions, like that's
Mhm.
fantastic, fantastic. But I didn't see enough of Belushi, so that's where I was like, okay, yeah, he's manic, he's crazy, he does coke. I
Mhm.
don't recall anything like really funny where I was like, oh man, yep, that's the Belushi I love.
When he
Am I
took
alone on that
over
one?
the weekend update that Lorne Michaels was doing, when everybody just watched Belushi just react and rant, that was vintage.
Belushi or
Yeah.
Chase?
No, no. So they had when they did the rehearsal and Lauren did update and was
No, yeah.
terrible, but then they panned
It
over to Belushi
pans.
at the desk and Belushi went nuts.
Yeah, I guess I just didn't find it funny.
Oh,
I
that is
just found it.
vintage.
I found it okay. That's a good Belushi impersonation. I just
Hmm.
didn't. I wanted more funniness and like more revering love for Belushi as opposed to just like, yep, this guy's a fucking nut. That's where I was like,
But he
it would have been
was.
nice to see. Yeah, but there was still a lovable sense of Belushi where he's like, life of the party's funny. So I think they did a great job of showing his craziness and just eccentric personality for sure. But I was hoping to see a little bit more of the reserved Belushi, so that way it would be a little bit polarizing as opposed to just here's Belushi at 100. You know what I mean? So that's what I kind of was hoping for.
Yeah, I
I don't
hear
know,
you.
but
I think that
di-
for the era that it's meant to represent, it works for me because he wasn't comfortable yet. Nobody was. They didn't know if they had a job for a long time or not. It was not a hit. As the show became a hit is when it started to get more and more outlandish. And they
so
really
this
learned how to use him. Like the writers understood how to use him better because, you know, I mean, it's all about learning your peeps.
so this whole movie's chaotic. Lauren's going from scene to scene and everything's just fucking going wrong. You got Chevy, who is just being an asshole to Belushi. Belushi fires off on him. Belushi's not signed his contract. Can't figure out, with what to do with Billy Crystal. Jim Henson's asking for his script pages, all reserved and everything. I love that Lorne is just going through all of the movie, and obviously all the shit's going wrong. Or I
Mhm.
shouldn't say going wrong, but it can't go right. Nothing's going right. I like the movie from that perspective of Lorne. But then they kind of sprinkled in like quite a bit of, here's Aykroyd, Dylan O'Brien, who's a great actor and has been in a lot of stuff as Aykroyd. I thought his impression of Aykroyd was spot on. I liked it a lot, and that was actually the time that I liked Dan Aykroyd. So it's later on that I was just like, what the fuck is this? Like, how much drugs and alcohol did he do over the years and to warp his brain? But I think I have a newfound respect for him too. But it's so interesting to kind of see some of my favorite people, and then you have Carlin, which I don't even remember being on Saturday Night Live. The actor that played him, he was in one of my favorite shows from FX. Matthew Rise or Reese, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but I believe he was with Kerry Russell on The Americans. Freaking fantastic. And him as Carlin, just kind of flying off the handle, was great. That guy is such a good actor. I'll watch him in anything. I think he did like the remake of Perry Mason or something on HBO. But uh, do you know much about him? And did you specifically remember Carlin being on SNL?
I knew as a random piece of trivia that Carlin was the first host of SNL. Um,
Dude, I am remembering everything wrong. I feel like I remember Steve Martin being the first host of SNL.
Steve Martin was a cast member
I
before he
don't
came back and
think that's
hosted.
I don't think that's accurate. I think Steve Martin, I don't think he was ever on as a regular. I think he was just a host.
Huh.
I'm pretty sure he was never on Saturday Night Live. He was just a host. And
He
like I said,
appeared 35 times,
yeah.
hosting three.
So okay, so he was on, but he was never a regular cast member, right? So kind of like Justin Timberlake's on fucking Saturday Night Live, and
Yeah.
is one of the Gibb brothers. But yeah, he was never part of the regular cast. That's
Oh,
why I'm remembering things like so strangely, because there are people that were on there but not part of, the announced cast. And I remember Steve Martin having a monologue too, if I'm not mistaken. So I don't.
well, he's hosted a lot.
Yeah, that's why like the very first episode, I want to say I watched like what I thought was the first episode of Saturday Night Live, but apparently I need to go back and watch them.
Um,
But
I just looked up your boy, Matthew Reese or Rice or whatever, who was in The Americans and Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood and stuff
he's
like
so
that,
good,
who
man.
played
So fucking
Carlin.
good.
And holy cow, what they did with hair to he doesn't even look like himself. Like good special effects there. Good practical effects there, but he did a pretty good Carlin
I don't know if you remember, but he was also the coked up
in Cocaine Bear.
druggie in Cocaine
Yeah.
Bear. Oh,
Yeah.
fantastic.
Hmm.
Just, oh, I love him. I love him. He's such, and if you haven't watched The Americans, you have to watch that show. It's such a fantastic Cold War type of show with a lot of great 80s reference, 80s music, and a lot of intrigue. A lot of intrigue if you're into that type of thing. So check it out. But yeah, kind of going off topic just because there's so many people to talk about. But what else do you feel like is the chaos working for you? Are you enjoying kind of like the manic stuff from scene to scene? And do you think that they're going to pull it off? Is there anything that's sticking out in your head?
Well, I think we know they pull it off, but I think that getting, some of those details and, that they were thinking about just running to Carson reruns. Um, and you kind of people that would show up to something like that and the pressure is fun to me because I haven't done anything to that level, right? But it just reminds me of dealing with like large scale things, events, trade shows, large corporate things, like, and just that pressure is not something I don't like recognize. And sometimes chaos is fun to watch other people deal with. It's the same reason I like to go Black Friday shopping because I remember when I used to have to like work in the store. So sometimes chaos is fun to watch. And I think that this, it never lets you get comfortable. And I like that. I like that it was just kind of different.
They showed a few of like the dress rehearsal things and everything. And
Mhm.
what were some of those skits that you're like, oh, I'm happy to see that. I'm glad that they made a little nod to that skit.
Oh, just Mighty Mouse, 100% Mighty Mouse. I
Yeah.
love that Mighty Mouse hit with the big wigs and the everything. Mighty Mouse is amazing to me. So I just loved that. Yeah, Mighty Mouse is one of my probably Mount Rushmore SNL skits.
My favorite in the movie, just because I thought it was a great nod, and I didn't realize that Aykroyd was boning Lorne Michaels' wife. I'm assuming that's accurate just because it's in the movie, but the whole Fred Garvin male prostitute thing, I never understood, and I never thought it was that funny before, but I thought it was like a great callback in the time of everything in the movie. So I was like, yeah, there we go. So surprise, surprise, I actually enjoy Dylan O'Brien as Dan Aykroyd in this movie. So it's at least Aykroyd has that going for him.
Did
Any other?
that really happen?
I I'm assuming it did because why would you make such a serious thing with that? They never specifically state anything, but Lauren says like, "Are you going home with him tonight?" I don't know. Was that supposed to be a joke? I thought it was like a flat out serious question, but the constant talking between him and Rachel Sennett, who's playing his wife,
Uh-huh.
that there's just like this uneasiness, but also an acceptingness of, oh, okay, well, yeah, we're married, but at the same time,
No, no, they definitely. Google says yes.
that
Google says it
they
happened.
Dan Aykroyd was totally nailing her.
Yeah,
Okay, well, I assumed it was right. I wouldn't see why they would put that in there if it didn't happen, but
it was the '70s, man. It was free love.
strange, just a strange dynamic. And you almost feel bad for Lauren, but I don't know if he feels bad. I think he's just accepting of it and he's just like, yeah, this is my life right now, and I'm gonna do anything that I can to make this happen.
Well, I think that one of the things that might go unnoticed in this show is when Lauren hands off update and stops trying to be a cast member, like
Yeah.
doesn't understands that in this moment this isn't the work he's meant to do and goes to drive the show and handle the things that aren't sexy that he's not excited about, but he understands that in this moment in time and amongst these amazing people, this isn't what he should be doing.
With all of those characters though, I'm curious as to how did Lauren pull all that respect? Like that's one of the only things from the movie. Like I understand in real life everyone respects and loves Lauren and some are legitimately afraid of him, but I didn't get that from this movie. It seemed like he was just like a guy putting something together.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know why anyone respected him. So that's part of the reason why I
Because
was
he was
just
doing
like,
something they
huh.
couldn't do. Like,
Really though? Really? It's kind of half-assed anyways. You just found like a lighting guy at a bar and everything was kind of last minute anyways. Like
but
I'm
and
curious where that respect came from on everything.
I know that he did it in a way that looked half-assed to you, but if you look at the personalities that were part of this, like the things that Lauren would have had to do behind the scenes and the backing and the trust that he would have had to build aren't really something that a lot of these crazy drugged up entertainers would have been able to pull off. Can you imagine Belushi negotiating with somebody or Chevy being told he's great and then getting absolutely boned on a contract? Like, Lauren was the one who had the platform,
I don't get that at all in
even
this
in that
movie.
moment, even in that moment. But Lauren also in that moment was trying to be one of the guys, trying to be one of the team. And only right before the first episode did he step out of it. I don't know if that was dramatized or not, candidly, but I think that handoff to Chevy was kind of a meant to be a tentpole evolution moment to where he said, "No, I'm gonna take my take there's a time when you can pursue the thing you want to do until it's time to do the thing you're meant to do. And I think that he would that was what he was meant to do and he knew it.
Yeah, I don't dispute that at all. I'm just saying it's hard for me to believe that Lorne Michaels has any type of power or respect from these cast members. That's my point. Like you don't see it. There's a lot of you're led to believe, or you, because you know the story of Saturday Night Live, you know that's the case. But going into it, you're just like, okay, because for me, the manicness and kind of just like fast paced story, and kind of going from A to X all the way through everything, it's tough for me to believe, and I'm trying to watch this as if I know nothing about Saturday Night Live, because there's the part of me that is a fan and kind of understands the facts, and there's part of me that's just like, huh, are they just throwing some of this stuff in just to, do some nice Saturday Night Live nods? I try to watch things with both as a fan, but also to kind of critique it, because once again, kind of going back to the whole Star Wars or Marvel thing, like because we know and enjoy Star Wars and Marvel, some DC stuff, because we enjoy that stuff, we almost connect the dots on our own because we know the history, we know the story, we know where want it to go, and we know where it's intended to go. For Saturday Night, the movie, I'm kind of that same way, to where it's like, yes, I'm enjoying it, but if I never watched Saturday Night Live, or maybe my history, maybe I watched it, but I never knew the history of even who Lorne Michaels was, this is kind of a tough watch for me. It's not the same thing where, like, oh yeah, you get some skits here and there, you get some of the laughs, you get some great nods and callbacks, but I it's not believable that Lorne is like this force and they pull it off. So that's kind of where I'm at
Well,
on
but was
the
he a force then? Like you think of him in the present tense or even in the tense where, like our generation started watching it. He was a decade in when we started watching it. Like nobody's nobody's powerful the first day. They're lucky.
sure,
And then they
but
build that experience and power and resume.
yeah, it's just not believable as to me. Like, you don't get any backstory about Lorne. You don't get anything from anybody. You're just assuming that you know all these people. So that's where it kind of Marthaed me, where I'm just like, okay, I'm a fan. I get it. I know this stuff, but at the same time, if I'm watching this with someone who has no idea who these people are, what's going on, and what is why is the countdown so fucking slow? That's the other thing that Marthaed me like a motherfucker is 15 minutes happens and then 1 minute tick goes by. I was like, Jesus Christ, really? Okay, we got 9 minutes to showtime, and like 20 minutes of shit happens and a minute passes on the clock. That's a problem for me. And maybe it's like a directorial decision to be like, yes, everything is happening so fast. It happened all within this instance. Maybe that's the Jason Reitman's idea behind it. And if so, then I get it. But I don't know, man. I like to watch things and hold some degree of realism to it, and this was about as real as it can get for like a Saturday Night Live episode, because I know from based off of all the stories, all the podcasts that I've listened to, from all the different actors that have been on it, that it's just kind of like there's crunch time, that shit is just going
Mhm.
all over the place. But it's if you don't know it, I'm having a hard time kind of just swallowing that pill.
I don't know. I didn't look at it as like a full biography. I looked at it as it was representing one moment in time, one night. And I enjoyed that. Like I didn't try and dig too deep into Lauren or the characters. I was stoked and that I think is why I liked the fact that there were so many unknown actors in the end, because nothing stood out to me like, oh, well, that's gotta be, it was detached enough to just let me feel in the moment for it. And, you know, have empathy and feel a little bit of stakes and just understand what these people were going through. So I liked that.
Anything else from the movie? Just Martha, you overall?
I don't know where Belushi got skates at a time when the Rockefeller Center ice rink would be closed. Other than that, no.
For Milton Berle, J.K. Simmons as Milton Berle, I thought
That's
that was
funny.
hilarious. I'm curious, was he really that old in 1975? He was 67 in 1975. That's the
Yeah.
only thing that like kind of surprised me. I remember Milton Berle being pretty spry well into the 90s. So maybe that is the case. He was just that old, but yeah, that's him
He was
whipping his
born
dick
in
out.
1908, bro,
Okay.
and
Well,
he
him whipping
lived
his
till
dick out.
2002.
Yeah. So that was funny. That there's just something about that BDE from J.K. Simmons specifically. And if that happens with Milton Berle and Chevy Chase, that's freaking awesome because I don't like Chevy Chase. Like I think that's so cool that if he did do that, then good for him. Good for Uncle Milty.
But the fact that he was just dancing with all the chicks, I thought that was like letting J.K. Simmons do some choreography. I dug that. But I was like, this is funny. It's a dance break with J.K. Simmons.
If you are looking for some nostalgia, that's definitely the case. But anything else you want to talk about on the movie or anything
Are
that
we
any
now going to talk
notables?
about Willem Dafoe finally
No,
being
he's
used
great.
as just in the way he should
Great.
be, just as an intimidating person in every movie?
I mean, he is an intimidating person in every movie.
That's what I mean. Like lean into that shit.
Yeah. There's only so much of a what would be considered a bad guy or excuse me antagonist that could be in a movie like Saturday Night. You know, you got Chevy, which he's a dick. We get it, but yeah, there needed to be some type of pressure and force besides the clock that moved way too slow.
Mhm.
So that's where Green Goblin comes in and throws some pumpkin bombs and almost fucks everything up.
Hey, I enjoyed it. And I can't say enough how much I love the fact that they made Chevy Chase so hateable. Like, if he's not in a vacation movie, I also despise Chevy Chase or the Three Amigos.
I always thought he was overrated. I always thought he was. Remember the Chevy Chase show? Like he
There
had one
was a
on
Chevy
Fox.
Chase show.
It was like late night
Oh my
on
God.
Fox. It was not great. I think it only lasted one season, if there was a full season. I don't even know, but
Mm.
yeah, I just I like that they brought him in there. But there's a few like humbling moments. I wonder, does everyone just hate him, and like that's the reason why he was portrayed that way? But they give him some of the daylight with Lorne, handing over update to him. I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
Chevy is funny and is talented, but his ego is the thing that's given him the reputation that has afforded him in Hollywood, right? He fucked his career in the 80s and the 90s by being an egotistical prick. And then he came back around on Community and was on a really successful show and tried to fight Joel McHale.
Just
And
talk
like
shit about everyone
just
and the.
just absolutely did it again. Like, Chevy, stop it. Did I love seeing him in Hot Tub Time Machine? Sure. But could it have been anybody? Yeah, it could have been Martin Landau. Who knows? Don't know.
Or Milton Berle. Who
Or
knows? I
Milton
don't know.
Berle. That would have been great. It would have been a corpse. But yeah. And I think
uh,
that there's just, I don't know. I like that they just threw it out there, right?
so the last thing I would say is the ladies who played Gilda Radner, Lorraine Newman, and Jane Curtin. I thought those were spot on from the
Mm-hmm.
looks, the mannerisms. It's just really funny how they portray them. And like, there's one line that Kim Matula said to as Jane Curtin, "I'm the mom. I'm the mom, but still fuckable." Like that. That's so funny that they say that because, like, yeah, she was the different type of person of the trio, and yeah, she said it like spot on. Like, yeah, that's exactly what everyone thought of. They thought of her as like the mom, but yet still fuckable.
Yeah. I think the other characters that maybe we didn't dig into too much here, Um, I don't think there was a bad portrayal. Even Billy Crystal, right?
Oh yeah, yeah, that was good.
It was good all around. Like the actors did an amazing job, and nothing in the acting marthaed me at all.
Okay.
Like I was very other than Belushi's pube beard. But it was good. It was solid. Like I have no problems with casting, and usually I have something to complain about all the time.
Robert Wall. That was one person that we did not talk about, and
I thought
man,
he
I
was dead. I was so
I thought
happy
so
to see
too.
him alive.
Yeah,
I
it was
Did you ever watch Arliss?
Arliss, another callback to a Saturday Night Live skit with Norm Macdonald. You ever watch the movie Arliss? Arliss. No, I never
It's
did.
not a,
But
it's not
yeah.
a movie. It was a show on.
Yeah, I know, but
Okay.
that's Norm Macdonald would say stupid shit like that, and I just like got any gum. But no, I never watched it because I didn't have HBO back in the day, and
Oh,
I never liked Robert Wool as a main character, so I was like, oh, I'm good. There's
I
nothing
don't
really
think
that's
he
gonna want
ever.
me to watch
I
it.
don't think other than Arliss, he ever was like a main character. Right? He was in
Exactly.
Good Morning Vietnam. He was in Batman. He was in
Yeah,
Bull Durham. But
yeah. But that kind of rounds out the cast. There's so much to talk about in this movie and can kind of dive deep into everything. But Mark, I got a question for you.
ooh,
When it comes to the Jason Reitman directed Saturday Night, can you do this all day?
so there's things to weigh. Am I going to watch this movie over and over again? Maybe yearly. There's just a lot of content out there. There's situations where I'm like, I want to feel Gorilla Panic. Let's watch this, right? Like, I don't know, but for the moment of watch, for the feeling I got at the end of the movie, for the joy it brought me, I can do this all day. And if there's any like notion of success for a movie like this, it made me switch to Peacock and turn on SNL episode one and watch the whole thing. Except when it got to the third time through the musical guest, and just like every other episode of SNL, I kind of checked out. But legitimately, I did that, and my wife watched it with me and did not leave when I turned it on. It wasn't like really. So it definitely drew well. I loved the way they ended it with the opening credit, like just it well done. I've got a feeling that you may have a different opinion, so I'm going to pose you a similar quandary about your ability to all day do this movie here of a night Saturday.
Music was great. Callbacks were great. All the different characters and everything that they packed in, I thought they did it fantastic. Any other movie with jamming in that many characters, with that many, each and every character had a bright spot. Even Dick Ebersol had a great bright spot with him and Lauren and talking about how he's, defending Lauren and he's catching all the flack from shit and Lauren never catches it. There's so many well acted parts. And same thing for all the different characters. They got people that looked like them, sounded like them, acted like them, perfectly executed from that regard. Because I'm a Saturday Night Live fan, I understood a lot of what was happening, who it's happening to, why it's happening. But taking myself out of it, trying to view it as a person with fresh eyes, just be like, okay, I'm familiar with Saturday Night Live, but I don't know a whole lot about what happened, on that first episode. I would think I would just be confused about whatever's happening. I wouldn't find it funny if I hadn't seen Saturday Night Live. So that's where I'm kind of like going back and forth. For the Saturday Night Live person who's a fan, knows the history, I would say it's a no-brainer what this answer is. But for those that haven't, I'd be like, "Ooh, not even close." Like you'd have to read, you'd have to watch multiple episodes, you'd have to get a whole dissertation as to what makes this movie so well executed. So I find it hard to give this, a green light on it. So I'm going to say I can't do it all day, not because I didn't enjoy it, but
Mhm.
just because to remain, you know, overall. both objectively and subjectively, like, huh, if I'm gonna say I can do this all day, like it has to be something that I would recommend to someone. I don't know if I'd recommend this to people who have never seen Saturday Night Live. So that eliminates like um, a good amount of audience just because like even the people that have seen Saturday Night Live now, the recent episodes, like they don't know Carlin, they don't know Belushi, they don't know Aykroyd, they don't know Chevy Chase. They don't even know, Jane Curtin, who was freaking hilarious, and Lorraine Newman and Gilda Radner. So it's yeah, for me, it's an easy, I can't do this all day just because I feel like I would need to explain a whole lot as to why the movie is good because they don't explain it in the movie as to why this is so monumental. Like there isn't even like a crawl or something that pops up at the end, like Saturday Night Live still running to this day, 50 some years later. Like it's not there. So it's yeah, it's just I can't do this all day. But
Hey, there's got to be hypocrisy on this podcast, or else it's not good.
that is true. And if you want hypocrisy, you can tune into us every week. New episode. We've been doing this for almost 3 years now. So hey, that's what we do, and that's what we're going to continue to do. At least we're under contract for the next year, so we're
Yep.
you're stuck with us,
Re-up.
guys. Until next time, I'm Dan, the part-time Avenger. That's Mark, the Resident Jedi.
Don't forget every Monday, like, subscribe. Uh, I can do this all day podcast on all of the socials. Maybe not TikTok sometimes, maybe sometimes TikTok. Who knows? It all depends on if it's on or off today. That could be a really old joke by the time this airs. But let us know what you think. Did you like this movie? Were you like, who the hell are all these people? Were you like, why is he dressed as a bee? Um, anything, anything there. We love when people express their displeasure with our work because that's what we do it for, is the positive interactions with the fans. Obviously, that's why we're here. So let us know what you think. And if you really, really hated the episode, um, subscribe twice because I mean we can frustrate you more. And this is the gift we have.
Not live from a Thursday night. We'll see you next time, everyone.